Ready? You're set? Okay. To work in a group is never done easily, especially when you're writing a Shakespearean soliloquy.
Without fame, what art thou? Yet without love, cannot live.
We are starting to read Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. In Act 2, the plot really starts to develop because of the presence of love. And as I was thinking about how I wanted the students to be able to interact with the text and to really unpack the layers of the language, I thought about this idea of having them personify love as a character. This is a 2-day lesson. What I'm going to ask you to do as a group is to compose a soliloquy. So just as a reminder, a soliloquy is a speech that's given by a single character on stage. And generally the purpose of the soliloquy is to reveal kind of their inner thoughts. Day 1, students are pre-writing and getting ready to write the soliloquy.
Yes, you should be British. Love, thou art for youth.
Day 2, they are performing, reflecting on their processes, and revising.
I will use my very love to assert my claim to thee.
Early in the week, in self-formed groups, they randomly drew the name of a character. They did some close reading of specific passages in this act that had to do with love.
If you turn the page to page 8, they start talking more about like sweetheart and love and whatnot.
The soliloquy is written from the perspective of their group's character, and it is spoken to this new character called Love.
Now half of me has been torn away, and what is left is love.
If you'll take a look at this focus guide that I've given you, first of all, your team has to kind of determine what your character would say to Love if he or she were somewhere in this act. It must be 10 lines long. You must use at least one line or phrase from the actual text, all right?
So one person from each group is going to come up and...
Well, let's talk about this. Does it have to be just one person delivering the soliloquy? That's one way to do it. How could you use more than one voice in order to represent that?
Like have the first person say like the first attitude, and then like in the transitioning part, like both of them can say
Absolutely.
different.
Absolutely. Here is the caveat that you must adhere to. Everyone in your team must have some responsibility. They must have some part in it. And then really at that point, they're off. You have the computers here. I'm going to ask you to compose this on Google Docs, and you want to share it with me and the people on your team.
Like someone stand in the middle and be like Olivia, but not say anything, and then have one person say like her good, you know, lovey-dovey side, and the other person say her negative side, and then the person in the middle like portrays it, like. You know?
Yeah, but that'd be kind of confusing. I think that'd be confusing with just two random people saying.
Another component of the challenge that I would almost call it was that they would place the soliloquy appropriately somewhere within the act.
Well, I was talking when she was like just kind of saying goodbye to tell me how he takes it. Farewell to you.
In doing that, they also are having to understand not only just their character, but the impact of this particular piece of writing within the context of Act 2.
Love, mine heart is overwhelmed.
Mine heart. Oh, that's very Shakespearean.
And then we'll have Viola exiting.
When the performance is done, I'm going to ask a few people in the classroom to kind of pose a few thoughtful questions to get them thinking a little bit more about their performance. And then what I'm going to ask all of you to do is to choose 2 groups to fill out the online response form for. And that means you just go back and you go to this link a second time. We're going to get started with Olivia.
We're both Olivia.
Uh-huh.
I'm Viola. Yeah. Unless perchance you come to me again to tell me how he takes it. Fare you well. Love, mine heart is overwhelmed. To thee, lad, I am drawn, as a moth to the flame.
But oh, 'tis fantasy, to see thine county's man and I as one. For his words are sent from another. Oh, love, thou art torturous. I'll not dread myself with such.
through the performance and the conversations that happened after each performance, we're really digging into what the underlying meaning is in the act.
So those of you who are doing the online, go for it. Let's hear a few questions.
What was the significance of the point at which you switched?
At first, Olivia is like talking about how she's like in love, but then she realizes when she lifts her veil that she can't have the love that she wants.
So talk to me first of all about Viola. One group was really struggling with how to make sense of their character, their double character of Viola and Cesario.
For Cesario, love would be a woman. He'll be talking to her, saying, I don't know.
What is love to Cesario? Because? Right.
It was a wonderful conversation because we kind of got to pick apart what they saw in Viola, what they saw in Cesario, and then I heard them say, without realizing it, that they have this commonality of frustration.
Okay, what about love to Viola?
Well, I guess we said frustrating.
Frustrating in the same way or in a different way?
Different way.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you found that there is something similar.
I saw the light go on in Tina's, eye. She said, "Yep, I've got it."
Viola, Cesario.
Love, why thou be so frustrating?
Why must you cause only suffering?
As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love.
If they're just standing in their own shoes, talking to love with their own language, I think that experience is a little bit different than standing into these character shoes with the character language.
Love, why do you smile at me so? Can you be so unfair as to leave me lost, deserted on this island?
Your mocking grin stares me cruelly.
Why hast thou, love, chosen to torture me so?
Love.
Good job. Nice.
What was the significance of that metaphor of being stranded on the island?
Her disguise is a man, and she can't love Orsino freely, and she can't get out of being loved by Olivia. So she's stuck.
This could be a soliloquy between Orsino and Viola. We could split this up.
That's what we were thinking. That way we can maintain the pretense that love is two-faced, which I think is really important in this play.
Students need entry points into the text that they read, and character is often the most accessible entry point.
All right, how's this sound so far?
Susie Wallace.
What dost thou
know? Love, thou tempest, shake the walls and shatter the bastions of the very fortress of my heart.
Sometimes if they focus just on plot, they focus just on the things that happen. But when they start to look at character, they start to look at how they evolve, they start to look at what shapes them. So it's an entry into analysis.
And then you say, what else did he man know about love?
So let's practice.
Like trying to console me, and you could be festy.
These waters bring life, make this very land you have ravaged lush and green and fertile. You leave this as you make it, ripe for new emotion.
The second reason why we look at character is because it also gives us an opportunity, especially in drama, to think about how all of these characters are working in conjunction to define each other.
You do not blind me, your beautiful countenance give me glimpses into her heart and mind. Your moonshine hair lets me see the stars, and in my hands I float among them. Thy body is the body of the gods, for in it I see eternity and a happy paradise, for how? How could I want more than you in my mistress?
Over the weekend, each student will take that soliloquy and they will revise it on their terms.
What was the effect of changing your voices the way you did?
We thought about this in three parts, an exposition of love, and then an argument against that exposition, and then a concession on my part.
We're still seeing that same level of discussion that we would want to have if I were standing at the front of the classroom and I had my list of questions and I was saying, now what do you think about this particular line in Act 2? We were getting there, but we were getting there on their terms.